This information has definitely been heavily suppressed. It rises and falls just like civilizations rise and fall. A lot of these indigenous tribes all have this same understanding of the reality that we're living in. They call it sleepy time, that this world is not actually real, that are alluding to the fact that it is a holographic universe.
Intention, thought, consciousness, voice, these are all ways in which we can manipulate or alter our reality. If we operate in a place of fear, then the universe or our subconscious will continue to provide us with things to be fearful of. Whereas if we're vibrating at the level of creativity, love, compassion, then the opportunities to express that will abound.
When you really break down these multiple gods, you discover that they aren't really the creators of the universe, that they seem to have been masquerading as gods, and that because of their high level of knowledge and potential high level of technology, the people around them deified them and proclaimed them to be actual gods.
There's a moment in the New Testament when the Apostle Paul gives a definition of God as the Greeks understood it. This is the Greek word theos. And he said, theos means the source of the cosmos and everything in it, that in which we all live and move and have our being, of which we are all offspring.
Everyone has the power. We're all connected, and we all can learn to walk in our power, and we can unite, and we can love and respect one another. That doesn't play well into their paradigm, because the paradigm that they want is a control paradigm. And in the control paradigm, there's one thing that must happen: divide and conquer.
Before we get into today's content, on behalf of the Fifth Kind TV, I want to say a big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring today's content. Surfshark is a VPN that allows us all to become citizens of the world through online access. If you're like me, you'll enjoy watching online content from countries all around the world. But I live in Australia, and what I'm shown in internet searches will be different to what you're shown in Canada, America, the Philippines, Germany, the Netherlands, or wherever you're watching from. By using Surfshark, I'm able to access a world of online content and see all the things that you see and many other things beside. Surfshark enables us to become citizens of the world through online availability. Get fully protected. Follow the link in the description, sign up and use the promo code FIFTHKIND to receive an 85% discount. Plus, you'll get 4 months for free. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you try it and you don't like it, you can easily cancel your subscription and receive a full refund. With Surfshark, you can swim under the radar in the sea of online content. Welcome to The Fifth Kind. Is the material world, we all know, really a fractal of something else? Is the universe, as it appears to us, really the artificial projection of something else? Now, this mind-bending idea was put forward 2,500 years ago by Aristocles of Athens, a philosopher and scientist known to the world as Plato. But he wasn't the first person to put this idea forward. The theory is in fact far older. Now, very few popular writers have ever dared to venture onto this mind-bending territory, but today's guest has, and to rave reviews. His book has been hailed by well-known theoretical and quantum physicists, including Professor Sylvester James Gates, Hakeem Olusei, and Teresa Bullard. Harvard's head of astrophysics, Avi Loeb, has this to say about the book: a fascinating journey from the mathematics of fractals to the physics of the universe and the nature of consciousness. An exhilarating read. High praise from a great mind of our time. And I have the author with me here today, Billy Carson. Welcome back to the Fifth Kind TV.
Hey, thank you for having me back. It's been too long.
It really has. And Firstly, Billy, congratulations on Fractal Holographic Universe. being received to rave reviews. As I said, it's a tremendously exciting book. It's just one of a number of things we're going to be discussing today. We'll talk about fractal holographic universe. Also, your previous book, a collaboration with our mutual friend, Matt LaCroix, The Epic of Humanity. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about the first season of Anunnaki, the series, which you've been premiering around the United States. Yeah. And then we must touch on the workshop that you and I are offering towards the end of the month on the 25th of August. Talk about what that is and why we're offering it. But let's begin with fractals. Tell us, Billy, what is a fractal? And what was it that first made you think that the idea of the fractal might be a key to understanding the universe?
Yeah, well, it's great questions. A lot of people don't know what a fractal actually is. So I'm glad you asked that question. A fractal is a self-similar image that begins to repeat itself in smaller and smaller scales. And so when you look at that in a fractalized image, which we know that artistically can be rendered, when we look at the nature of reality, we found out that fractals also exist in reality, in our real world, our third dimensional realm, I should say. And they decided to look as close as they could into matter. And the deeper they look, the more they realize that the whole can be revealed in the smallest part. And in the smallest part, they discovered that it's just a fractal of the whole. So we've discovered now that scientists, being we, that everything in the third dimension exists as a fractal of something much larger. And that can be taken from not only the physical concept, even into the philosophical concept. And so what made me really want to get into this, back in 2016, I was asked to do a class or a lecture at a big conference, which was going to be the following year, like in about 7 months. And I was thinking, what topic should I pick for that lecture? It's going to be a 3.5-hour lecture. And I wanted something really exhilarating. And I had already kind of been looking into fractals and doing my research on it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to dive in extremely deep into this because it's really intriguing. And a lot of people don't even know it exists. So once I dove deep into it and started getting into the Mandelbrot set and fractal mathematics, I brought that to the conference, and the conference was an absolute hit. The lecture was a hit, a standing ovation. It was one of my best conferences, and a lot of the information that I utilized to create that research way back in 2016 actually made it into the book.
Now, you talk about fractal mathematics. Tell us a bit about that, because people might have in mind fractal universe as a very ethereal, philosophic idea. For instance, the Hermeticists of the distant past had a way of talking about it. It's there in Hermeticism. But since that time, we've learned a lot more about maths and a lot more about the physical cosmos. What flesh and bones have been added to the idea of fractalization through mathematics?
Well, once Mandelbrot came out with the Mandelbrot set equation, a few people started looking at it like, how can we actually put this to the test? And it went into Pixar Studios. And some of the designers in Pixar Studios took the fractal mathematical equations and added them into their animation software. And they came up with the very first animation software at Pixar Studios that creates every scene as it's needed on the fly, just as quantum physicists are suggesting that our reality is created on the fly, wave-particle duality. And so once they inputted the code into their software, they realized that the animation was creating itself. The background scenes, the mountains, the oceans, the waves in the ocean, the buildings, the structures, everything, nature, and even the actual animated characters themselves were all being created by this simple fractal mathematical numerical formula. And they realized that, wow, this literally is how our universe is working. And so once they did that, more people started digging into it. A group of 14 college students decided to take that same code and put it into a program, a gaming program called No Man's Sky. It fits on one DVD, and it holds 80 quadrillion planets, unlimited life forms, and the game actually never ends. So we see that we've created an entire universe on a DVD utilizing the same fractal mathematic formula. So it's an amazing formula that literally describes exactly how everything in this realm has come into being. Not that it happened by mistake, but that this mathematical code is evidence or a fingerprint of a creator.
So in the 21st century, we are applying fractal mathematics to create things, and to create things that are far more real visually than we've ever created before. Is it, you say it tells us something about the process of creation of the cosmos. Talk to that a little bit, because some people might say, well, isn't this just another way of saying there's mathematics to everything we're looking at? How does it go deeper than that?
Oh, it goes much deeper. So what scientists did was that at CERN, at the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, they smashed these particles together in Switzerland. And they found out that at the very heart of matter, we actually have only light. I mean, there's more things that happen. Of course, you have quarks and muons and all these other particles and so forth. But at the deepest level, everything exists as a wave of potentials in superposition until a conscious mind collapses it into solidity. So the reality is everything exists as waves of light waves that we can't particularly see with our own eyes because we can only see 1% of the light spectrum or less. But these waves actually do exist. And what it means is that all the ancients were correct. The ancient sages, the wisdom keepers, even in the biblical texts, in other religious texts, we are living in a creation. This proves that we're living in a creation, and it's a designed creation. Professor Sylvester James Gates Jr., who's a professor at the University of Maryland, former scientific advisor to President Obama, got together with a group of super mathematicians, and they discovered this fractal mathematic code, which they not the fractal mathematic code, they discovered the Adinkra codes, which are hidden within the fractals. And these codes are called Adinkra codes, named after the Dogon tribe of Mali's actual symbols that they have been writing. Nobody knew that these symbols and these artistic renderings that were being created by the Dogon tribe of Mali, Africa, all these thousands of years, if you take them and turn them into three-dimensional objects, they actually reveal fractals and this other code called Adinkra codes, which are really error-correcting codes. And so Professor James Gates and his team discovered that these error-correcting codes that are hidden within the fractals of nature and life itself are the same exact codes that run search engines and web browsers. There's no difference. So you can see we've only rediscovered an existing code that exists and utilized it to create the browser that I'm actually talking to you through right now.
Yes.
And it controls and runs it. And so at the heart of nature itself, these are the codes that create the realm and the reality that we're actually living in. And it leads again back to an actual source creator that embedded this code here. So to me, it proves that we're living in a creation. It proves the existence of a God, the universe, a higher source, or whatever you want to call it.
So in a sense, we can only discover codes that actually exist. The codes really are the fingerprint of God, to use that language.
Yeah.
Where does that take us in terms of theology? Because way back we had a philosophical system of deism that said, well, God was the intelligence that started everything off, and laws have been put in place to ensure that everything unfolds as was originally intended. Does it get us to an image of God like that, who's just the clockmaker, or is there something more subtle that goes on with fractalization?
I personally believe that it gives us a connection to a much higher source, and that we realize because we're completely embedded inside of this matrix, right, with this avatar body, that everything that exists at the largest level exists at the smallest level. And so that's all inside of our body. So the divine spark that created everything in the universe is within us, and we're within it. And so we're just another expression of this universe. We're another wave of potentials experiencing itself subjectively. And from my perspective, it makes me feel like I'm more directly connected to the creator, and the creator is directly connected to me, and that we are actually one, and all of us are just one. We are all one, experiencing life subjectively through different perspectives. And I think this is a real, real big thing. For some people, they think, oh man, we're just living in a hologram and we're not real. No, we are truly real, and we are having these experiences, but collectively we're creating reality. And to me, that's so exciting that we have this direct connection to source, and that we don't have to go through a middleman or a middle deity, that we ourselves are directly connected energetically and spiritually. And this realm itself is this fractal mathematical holographic universe. It's a realm that potentially maybe even is a proving ground or a testing ground for consciousness to experience itself and learn more about what it's like to be in the third dimension.
It's so interesting where you're going with this, Billy, because I arrive at exactly these same conclusions through the study of ancient texts, through shamanic narrative traditions all around the world. Everything you've just said, these are the conclusions that I'm reaching. And in the past, we've had hints of what you've just said. So Hermeticism had the idea that by studying the very small, you would come to understand the very large. By looking at very small observable things here, you'd come to understand the universe and how it really is. Mm-hmm. And then in Jesus, we've got amazing sayings in the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus says, if you use the root meanings, that the whole cosmic realm is inside us. The kingdom of heaven is within you, is the familiar translation. And so the idea again that if we peer into ourselves, we'll understand something profound about the cosmos. And if we peer into the cosmos, we'll understand something very profound about ourselves. And then light, the properties of light that you just mentioned. I think it was in the 13th century that a Christian bishop, Robert Grosseteste, through studying texts and a little bit of observation of the stars, came to the conclusion that everything is made of light, that we will not understand the cosmos until we understand the properties of light, which is a huge leap forward towards the science we have today. Mm-hmm. But where you take this goes beyond that and goes to the question of the human experience, human consciousness. What is it, and can we experience it differently? When we get our heads around the fractal holographic universe, what are your thoughts about what we can do differently? How can we live our lives differently in the light of it?
Yeah, and that's a great question and phenomenal summary. Okay, let's go to as above, so below to come up with an explanation for this question or an answer for this question. If you realize on the larger scale that this universe is a universal mind, that the universe itself has enough connections, energetic connections, to allow it to become conscious. Let's just imagine that for a minute on the larger scale, on the macro. Now let's take that down to the micro. Look at your mind, your brain inside of your skull. Your brain is encased in complete darkness. Let's presuppose your brain is a fractal of the universal mind. Now, what happens with your brain? Your brain is encased in darkness. It doesn't have any idea what's going on outside, but your brain does have friends. All your sensory perceptions, right? So you're touching, smelling, hearing, tasting, seeing. It says to its friends, hey, you guys go out there and collect me some data so I can figure out what's going on. The friends go out and they start touching, smelling, tasting, hearing, feeling, seeing. They themselves don't understand the data that they are collecting. They can only collect the information. They collect the data and transmit it through electrical signals back to the brain. The brain then takes that data, that raw data, and sorts it all out. And then the brain actually projects a hologram, and you navigate through that hologram that your brain took in from information, data collected from its sensory perception friends. So what does that mean? On the larger scale, let's go back to the macro now. Imagine that the universe is a mind, a conscious entity. Now let's take a look at that. Who are the universal mind's friends? Well, that would be Paul Wallis, Billy Carson, right? Your neighbor, your wife, your son, your whatever, right? So we ourselves, all the sentient beings throughout the entire known universe, and even the non-sentient beings, are all out here collecting data. By how? By living our actual lives. By doing what we do on a daily basis, we are collecting data, and I believe that we are consciously transmitting that information back to the source, and the source is learning what it's like to be me, you, and everyone else, and everything else that exists in the known universe. And the reason why this is important is because it lets you know that we have a direct connection and that everything potentially is conscious, because even an atom has electrons orbiting it. Those electrons make a conscious decision to become a wave or actual digital bits of information based on observation. We know that through the double slit experiment in quantum physics. So if not only are we conscious, but even an atom is conscious, which means a rock is conscious, a blade of grass is conscious, a tree is conscious. Everything is transmitting information back to source, and source has the omnipresence and omnipotence through this energy field, and it's gaining all of this data, and it's understanding what is it like to be everything that exists in this realm.
I love this concept. I first discovered it in Phaedo, Plato's book,
Yes.
where he argues that consciousness came first, and that everything in the material cosmos exists in order for that consciousness to experience itself and to have experiences. The whole cosmos is on a learning journey, and your learning journey and mine are really a fractalization of that. And I love how you put it, that the universe is experiencing itself through my sense of sight, through my sense of taste, so on and so forth. This idea about the origins of the cosmos was really already in mainstream thought and conversation 2,000 years ago. Somehow, though, it never quite made it onto the mainstream syllabus of our schools and churches. And I'm going to come back to that. Yeah. But round about the time that Christianity was beginning, it was something that people had some understanding of. So much so that there's a moment in the New Testament when the Apostle Paul gives a definition of God as the Greeks understood it. This is the Greek word theos. And he said, theos means the source of the cosmos and everything in it, that in which we all live and move and have our being, of which we are all offspring. And what I love about that definition is there's no separation in it. You and I couldn't be more intimately connected with the source. There's nothing we have to do to get back to the source. We are all emanations of the source.
Exactly.
And it's as you were saying, Billy, that we should fully expect to be having divine experiences, thinking divine thoughts, feeding information to the divine through our own experiences. And I find that once I took that notion on board, I began seeing evidences of this all around me. And it was a far more empowering kind of approach to life and consciousness and spirituality than I'd had before. I wonder for you, Billy, if you found any really simple, grounded practices that you use from day to day to help this insight really enter into your lived experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's another great question. You know, I'll give you a very short story so people can really grasp what I mean when I tell you this, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. As a lot of people know, I coached basketball. I coached in particular women's basketball for quite some years. I was a Team USA Junior Olympic coach. I was an AAU coach, USSSA coach. And over the course of time, I acquired about 15 gold medals over 8 years. And so I'm coaching at the I tell you this to tell you, I'm coaching at the highest level for that group. And I'm in youth development. And I'm at an exposure tournament where college coaches come from all over the country to scout players that I have in the gym running scrimmages and running tournaments. And the best player in the gym, I mean, this girl was so phenomenal. It was like you can implant her from high school directly into the WNBA, and she would be a starter in the WNBA at that time. This is years ago, but that's how phenomenal she was. And everyone was on her. All the college coaches were looking at her. And then they started all little by little dropping off as I was going around getting my feedback. they started turning their eyes towards other players. And I'm going, man, this girl's the best player in the gym. They can't see this. I don't understand what's going on. And so I got to one coach and I was talking to one coach and she was telling me the main thing that we don't like about her is that she's disrespectful to her gear and her tote bag and even some of her own teammates. So they're looking and they're recognizing several things. She's not taking care of her own items. Now, why is this important? And she's disrespecting other people. It's important because if you understand the double slit experiment in quantum physics, where they were shooting electrons through a small microscopic slit inside of a tiny, tiny box, and on the back wall, they expected to see a digital pattern of little electrons hitting the back of that board. And they even tried it with photons. Same exact thing happened. On the backboard, there was actually a wave pattern. So where there should have been digital bits of information, the particles or the photons turned into waves. And so they put a little camera inside the box to see exactly what was going on. And when they put the camera to look and see, the particles decided to become particles again and hit the back of the wall in two strips of lines as digital bits of information. They took the camera away, went back to waves. Put the camera back, went back to digital bits of information. So they realized something, that matter, at the heart of matter itself, it's conscious and aware that it's being observed. And what does it have to do with taking care of your stuff? Well, when I realized that every atom in this microphone that I'm talking into is conscious because it has electrons orbiting it. When I recognize that every atom in this glass, this mug that I'm holding on to, is conscious, I'm going to, if I understand the power of consciousness and sentience, I'm going to treat it with respect. Imagine if you could take a child and you can teach them that everything that exists, whether it's biological, non-biological, what appears to be quote unquote man-made, is actually alive and conscious, and to treat it with respect and dignity and love. Imagine how they would take care of this stuff from the time they were very little until they grow up. So you have to learn how to revere. So I learned to revere everything, to understand that everything needs to be treated properly and with care and with respect and dignity. So it changes your whole outlook on everything that exists in the known universe, including yourself. Everything that you actually have that you quote unquote believe you own, you treat that with respect and dignity. Everything that everyone else has, you treat that with respect and dignity. And of course, because you understand consciousness at a high level, you then begin to try to treat everyone out there as you would like to have yourself treated, right? So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so that old saying holds true, but it all starts with practicing the understanding that everything is alive and everything has meaning.
When you said that, my mind immediately went to ways we behave instinctually, particularly when no one's watching, when we will talk to inanimate things, especially if we're trying to get them to do what we want them to do. I mean, many of us speak to our cars if they're not working properly, for instance. A lot of gardeners talk to their plants, so on and so forth. Come on, you can do it. We have this feeling that there is another pattern of causation that we're not taught in church or in school, that we can manipulate reality because everything is conscious. How real is that? Does this insight point to the possibility that we can invoke causalities quite different to the ones we've learned in school?
Oh, I believe we can. We can definitely create these causalities because guess what? We have something amazing. We have two things actually working for us in our favor that we all have, or most of us actually have the capability, is we have our own vocal box that actually works, right? So we have cymatic frequencies that are emanating from our vocal box. No matter what language you're speaking, it doesn't really matter because the vibration backed by conscious thought. So the vibrations coming out, the conscious thought wave pattern is getting embedded into that cymatic frequency and is traveling out from you. And it's going to encounter everything in its path that the wave can actually interact with. And those vibrations are going to make those atoms vibrate at different rates. And those electrons are going to take in that vibration, the protons and everything else. And so my personal feeling in reality is that we have an effect on what we consider to be inanimate objects. We have an effect on these things because of our cymatic frequencies and our conscious thoughts. Now, of course, there needs to be a lot more tests done on this, but we do know things like telekinesis by some of the Tibetan monks the ability to move things with your mind, and also Tibetan monks' ability to move giant stones with vibrations from their vocalization of mantras. So these things have been done before and documented. A lot more rigorous scientific study should be done on it. But I do believe that we definitely have the effect on the realm and the reality within our reality tunnel as we speak and think and how we want things to be. And I think that a person that's on a low frequency, that's always talking bad to their own items, talking bad to their car, and thinking bad thoughts at the same time, they usually have a lot of problems coming right back at them, because the universe is like a mirror. It gives you back what you put out. But
Yes.
People who are giving care and love and respect and asking nicely and thinking positive thoughts, they always seem to have a slightly better life. They still have bad things happen or negative things happen to them, but it always seems like they seem to get over those things and continue to move forward, right? But other people that have a problem for every solution, they're always being held back, and they always have another problem for another problem for another problem. So I think we have causality in our vocal box and our conscious thought.
Yes, I agree with that completely. And I can think of three groups of people who straight away would relate to what you've just said. One group would be people who speak for a living. So teachers, preachers, who know that by changing their tone of voice, they can change the atmosphere in the room. They can change how people feel. Healers will know this. And I've had the experience myself of speaking to things we would think of as not conscious. So speaking to an injury, or speaking to a condition, or speaking to a virus, and then seeing a response. And I've had many experiences like that are mind-boggling, and that have left me thinking, how on earth can that possibly work? But it's been that way round, where I've seen the connection and then thought, well, how is this working? And then what was there was a third group of people, dentists. Dentists today, I don't know if this happens in the States, but it happens in the UK in the way dentists are trained there, and it happens in Australia, that dentists are taught to use specific frequencies in their voices in order to impact the state of mind of their patients. So all those people would be sitting thinking, yes, there is something to this, that intention, thought, consciousness, voice, these are all ways in which we can manipulate or alter our reality. And another way in which Plato talked about this was emotional vibration, that if we operate in a place of fear, then the universe or our subconscious will continue to provide us with things to be fearful of. Or if we're vibrating in a state of anger, the universe will continue to provide us with things to be angry about. Whereas if we're vibrating at the level of creativity, love, compassion, then the opportunities to express that will abound. And I think that that's really an undergirding aspect of what people talk about when they describe the law of attraction, that people are noticing these other causalities that we can begin to play with. And as I say, I've seen this is real through my own life. You've had experiences that show this is not theory only. So here's the question I wanted to return to. How do we keep forgetting this? Because in every age, there's been some understanding of this. We talked about Thoth, Plato, Jesus, Robert Grosseteste. They all had some understanding of this. How is it that this has not made its way into our mainstream schools, churches? Why do we not all know this? Is there some sense in which this information is not welcome, or this information has been suppressed?
Yeah, this information has definitely been heavily suppressed. It rises and falls just like civilizations rise and fall. And so you can see this undulating pattern over time through many different civilizations. The Aboriginals of Australia, the Lakota tribe and the Hopi tribes of the Americas. A lot of these indigenous tribes all have this same understanding of the reality that we're living in. They call it sleepy time, that this world is not actually real. that are alluding to the fact that it is a holographic universe. The ancient Egyptians, pre-dynastic era in the land of Kemet, have the same exact understanding. Why does this information come to the forefront and then fall away? It's because people who are able to assume a high level of power at some point take the notion of the idea that everyone has the power. We're all connected and we all can learn to walk in our power and we can unite and we can love and respect one another. That doesn't play well into their paradigm, because the paradigm that they want is a control paradigm. And in a control paradigm, there's one thing that must happen: divide and conquer. You cannot control the narrative if everyone is on the same accord. You must break people apart. You must separate them. You must have them going at each other, angry with each other, thinking one is better than the next one. And once you get that going, then you have everything you need, the perfect recipe to create the control paradigm. And once they get that control paradigm, they don't want to relinquish it or let it go. And so it seems to last for centuries at a time until the collapse of that empire. And then you get another empire that rises, and then they squash the understanding and the concept of this vital information once again as they start to take control of that entire civilization. So this rise and fall of these corrupt oligarchs are the main reason, in my opinion, that we see this rise and fall of this knowledge.
So, brothers and sisters, if you've not picked this up, if you want to break out of that matrix, Fractal Holographic Universe is the book to read. It really is an exhilarating read. I really enjoyed it. I've written a commendation for it myself, and it's a deeply empowering book. If you want to get hold of Fractal Holographic Universe, you can go to Forbidden Knowledge, available on Amazon. And is it wherever books are sold?
Yeah, pretty much. It's everywhere now. It's a bestseller. At its highest point, it reached #1 in fractal mathematics, #1 in quantum theory, and number 4 in science and philosophy. So it's now been adopted and accepted everywhere.
I saw that, and it was back to back with another international bestseller, The Epic of Humanity. What a wonderful title. I wish I'd thought of that. This was the book that you co-authored with Matt LaCroix, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because that really frames the human story in a very different way, again, to the way that we've learned at school. It speaks to human origins and human potential. It's a very grounded book, because you go to global sources and ancient texts to put together this other picture of the human story. So I want to ask about that. Tell us about the journey of that book, and what were the global sources? What were the texts that you first came across that began reprogramming your own paradigm about who and what we are and what we're capable of?
No, definitely. Yeah. Years ago, I had met Matthew LaCroix through a friend of ours online. This was all an online friendship. Gerald Clark, an amazing human being. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, but just a great man who got together some what he thought were great minds to talk about ancient civilizations and metaphysics and philosophy. And so that's how I met Matthew LaCroix, was through the late, great Gerald Clark. And Matthew LaCroix and I felt like we were on the same frequency. We were both into ancient texts and tablets. We were both researching the same ancient information with the same perspective and understanding. And I really resonated with him. And when I got a chance to meet him in person, I flew to Maine and I met him, and we went on one of the private islands in Maine, and we actually did a podcast together, and we got to really break bread and really talk about collaborating. And we came up with the idea of doing the book, and Matthew coined the name right there on the spot, The Epic of Humanity. And I said, that's it. And fast forward, we created the book, and it's a book that really gives us an understanding of humanity, an understanding of where we came from thousands and thousands of years ago, all the way up to the current day. And the sources for me that really got me excited about this book were a lot of the ancient texts that had really never really been brought to the forefront, like the Enuma Elish and the 7 Tablets of Creation, the Epic of Atrahasis, the Myth of Adapa, just so many ancient texts that were there that was like, wow, why hasn't anyone gone into the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Vedas? A lot of it is just so much. I think maybe people thought they'd get overwhelmed with it, But Matthew and I saw a real need to bring this information to the forefront. And we saw other texts that are really important to humanity's current, mental condition and where we are economically, like the Code of Hammurabi, and it's all these other ancient texts, but other texts as well, like the Egyptian Book of Going Forth by Day, which is now they call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We've gone into so much of this text in the actual book. And what I love about this book is we actually break this text down. We show you the actual verses from a lot of these texts, and we give you the ability to read a certain amount of these texts. We even go into the Sumerian Kings list and many other texts that people have never taken a look at. We give it to you in a way that you can see it, you can read it, you can see the breakdown of it, you can then discern it, understand it, and get your own view of the information and create your own hypothesis on exactly what you think happened. So we don't force any ideology or perspective down anyone's throat. We give you the raw information. And this is probably why the book hit a bestseller at one point in encyclopedias and ancient civilizations encyclopedias. Number one in Assyrian history, number one in ancient Mesopotamian history. So it's done very well.
Now, the worldview most of us grow up with when we think about the origins of humanity is largely shaped by religion and or science in its post-19th century iterations. So on the one hand, if we grow up with a religious worldview, whether it's Muslim or Jewish or Christian, in particular the theistic religions, we are given a view that God has decided what human beings are going to be. This is how we're created. What you see is what you get. This is our level of intelligence and consciousness. End of story. And so our role in life is really just to do what God wants. There's no real invitation to become more than we are or to go exploring. And similarly, if we think about the sort of post-Darwinian view of humanity that says we have evolved to this point. Again, it's a what you see is what you get kind of story. And there's no real mystery or invitation to ascend and become more or expect to have deeper, more powerful experience of life. It's just, this is where we are. In the text you're describing, it's not quite like that. How do these ancient texts and ancient writers see things differently to that?
Oh, yeah, they see things much differently. A lot of the texts that we're referencing inside the Epic of Humanity are, pre-monotheistic mindset. So a lot of this information are people that are believing in multiple gods. And these multiple gods that they're talking about end up being referenced in several incredible texts, predominantly in the Babylonian and Assyrian texts. And when you really break down these multiple gods, you discover that they aren't really the creators of the universe, that they seem to have been masquerading as gods. And that because of their high level of knowledge and potential high level of technology, the people around them deified them and proclaimed them to be actual gods. And they played off of that, and they used the people in a way that they shouldn't have used them. Not all of them, but some of them. And so the mindset was this pantheon mindset, these pantheons of gods. And the first pantheon wasn't in Greece. The first pantheon was in Sumeria, in Mesopotamia. And then you see these gods referenced in other civilizations around the world, and you realize they're all talking about the same exact people. So then you have the understanding that these people were global, that they had made their way around the planet. You find the Sumerian pantheon of Enki and Lil and Nu and so forth. You find them in Nigazida. You find them in Egypt. There's the Natiru, right? The Natiru, according to the ancient pre-dynastic Egyptians, are the gods that came from heaven to earth and turned mud into a kingdom at the time of Zep Tepi. And then you see them, of course, you see them in Greece as Odin and Zeus and so forth. Then you also see them, in even in China as Wang Di. You see them you see one of the gods in Australia as Thothamabi. You see them throughout the Mesoamerica region, which is now Mexico and South America. Lord Pakal, Kukulkan, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl. but they end up all being mostly the same individuals roaming around this planet, interacting and engaging mankind. And so from the people's perspective, they saw these beings as actual gods because they became cargo cults. They believed that these people were supernatural, when in true reality, I believe they were just physical, corporeal beings that had a higher level of knowledge and they had advanced technology. And that was a perspective that they wrote about these gods from, though, that from a spiritual aspect, even being that these beings may not have been that spiritual as they seem to have used humanity in some cases in a very, very wrong and bad way.
For sure. You've gone straight to where I wanted to go next, which was to ask you to pin down what exactly you think these gods were. Who were they? Where were they from? Because I think when we use the word gods today, certainly those of us who've had a Western education, we immediately think of imaginary, mythological, imaginative. These are just ideas. Whereas when the ancients used the words that we've translated as gods, they didn't mean that at all. They were talking about flesh and bone people. But from where? Who were they? Where were they from? What did the ancients have to say about that?
Yes. So it's interesting. The more I looked into, like, where are these beings from? Of course, there's some books that have come out that say they're from this planet named Nibiru and so forth. I did find Nibiru, a reference to Nibiru and the Anunnaki in the Enuma Elish, the older version of the Enuma Elish in the 7 tablets of creation. But I said there must be a lot more to this because they're monuments on Earth. These megalithic structures are all aligning with these different star systems. And then I started looking into artifacts, and a lot of these ancient artifacts were referencing the Pleiadian star system. They were either depicted in the artifact or the artifact was a reference directly to the Pleiadian stars. So I started digging into any knowledge I could find about the Pleiadian star cluster, which viewed from Earth appear to be 6 bright stars on a clear, dark night, even though there's really many more stars in that part of the sky. There used to be 7 bright stars, but 1 star actually ran out of fuel and became a white dwarf, which you can't see with the naked eye anymore. But through the research, I discovered through many different texts that there were people living in planets orbiting in that star system, and that at some point they went to war. It was a galactic war, a megalithic galactic war. And in some of the references in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, the weapons that were used were like straight out of a sci-fi movie. They had the Brahmahanda Astra, which could destroy any man on 3 worlds. They had weapons that when they were released, they could not be stopped or thwarted. They had weapons that can literally blow up planets like a Death Star. And I believe that through these wars, planets were being blown up, habitable moons were being blown up, and the debris was floating through that sector of space. And that debris created a problem for people that weren't even involved in the war, and of course, people that were. And so you have a chunk of planet colliding with your planet, you know it's going to be a global disaster. So what do you have to do? If you have the capability, you flee. This is the very first account in history, I believe, as of people becoming space refugees. And they began to flee that region of the sky and head out to other star systems. Orion, Aldebaran, Ursa Minor, Draco, Sirius A, B, and C, and so forth and so on. And they begin to inhabit other planets and start breakaway civilizations. One group crash lands on a planet named Nibiru that orbits a brown dwarf star that was gravitationally captured by our solar system. But all of these groups were all from that same region of space. Some came down to this Earth and created a breakaway civilization here. And I believe that according to the text, it says that they worked themselves. They did the labor. They were actually doing the clearing of the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers and creating the canals and building cities. And at some point, they decided the work was too much, and they decided to go to war against each other because one group was controlling the other. And a decision was made to take the existing hominid on this planet, it was already here, our cousins, to add their essence to it, which in my opinion means genetically modify it and get it to bear the load, they say. And at that point they did that. Then the hominid was converted into Homo sapien and became a slave without knowing it was a slave. How? Because They believed that they were doing the work of the gods. And I think that's exactly what happened here. And that Earth became a gigantic cargo cult at some point. So that's what they were doing. They were literally creating a breakaway civilization. I think a lot of them hailed from the Pleiades.
The story you just described repeats all around the world. It's told in the pages of the Bible with the arrival of the Tseva Hashemayim, the sky armies. It's told in the Sumerian stories of the Enuma Elish and the stories that follow from that. It's there in the Vedas, Norse story, Celtic story, Greek story. And it was those correlations that really first grabbed my attention, that made me think there is a shared memory that is being expressed in this great diversity of stories around the world. And I love how when you talk about the gods, you call them people, because it's quite clear they're not idealized, conceptualized, ethereal, transcendent beings. Right. They are flesh and bone beings who are every bit as flawed as you or I, or as the nations of the world today. And it's very easy to relate to the conflicts and the competition that we read about in these stories. And I keep coming back to Plato, but I'm fascinated by the fact that he was really on top of this. And when he primed people to understand the world's stories of the gods, he said, just be clear that gods can mean one of two things. It can be a mythological, personalized, anthropomorphic way of talking about stars and planets, but it can also refer to beings who are very similar to us. They've just got more advanced technology. And for me, it's the use of advanced technology in some of these stories, particularly in the Bible and the Vedas and the Sumerian texts, that clue me that we are looking at spacefaring species, people, but people who come from elsewhere in the cosmos. Now, I'm hoping that a lot of this material, because I haven't seen it yet, is in the first season of Anunnaki. Tell me a bit more about where you've gone in that first season, which has been a wonderful success, and where you're planning to go in the next season.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. Yeah. I decided to come up with a docu-series called Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed. And this docu-series is going to have unlimited seasons and unlimited episodes, as we know that it's going to be extremely popular. And what I did was I went to the very beginning. I went all the way back to the Pleiadian star system. I talked about the wars, and I tell you and break down where the evidence or information about these wars came from. I break down the quadrants of that region of space. And I break down where these potential beings could have fled to and how they got to Earth. And then from there, what began to happen to the human race. And so the first series is a lot of information, a lot of knowledge is dropped, but we do it in a way that gives you a chance to really understand and conceptualize and discern it, as well as there's enough key phrases and words in there to give you sources that you can go look up and research for yourself, because I want people to become researchers. And then as we spread out this series, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episode, 7, 8, 9, we're going into now breaking down the information in depth and going deep into the content, even doing something that's never been done on any ancient civilization show. We're going to read directly from the actual tablets and some of these ancient texts and give people an understanding of what's being said, a breaking down of what's being said. Let them see the tablet, let them see the text for themselves. Usually it's just a lot of hypotheses and perspectives in some of these ancient shows, but I want to be able to give people an actual lesson, a history lesson. Let them see, let them learn. We know people are visual learners, most people, and give them a chance to get something solid. And so we've done this, and season 1 is a success. It's huge. We've been going around the United States to Regal IMAX cinemas in particular. They gave us a deal, and we've been able to show this on IMAX screen. So, you know, the quality has to be creme de la creme. And every theater we've gone to has sold out, and people are really receiving this information in an amazing way and loving every minute of it. And we're looking forward to releasing more episodes. We have a few more live premieres coming up this year, one in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and another one in Miami, Florida. And then we're going to release every episode once a month onto our TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV app.
One of the things I really love about your approach, Billy, is how grounded it is. Because,
Thank you.
as you say, I mean, there are other things people can watch that are sort of more speculative. You know, they'll show you some interesting things, and they'll say, well, could it be? Could this be evidence of? Might our ancestors have? Da, 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 da. And that's fine. And it's great to have the mystery, and it's great to be invited to speculate. But what you do is something different. You are looking at solid data. You are grounded in stories that have been curated by traditional cultures for thousands of years. And there is an objectivity to the way you're approaching this that I think makes it easier for a wider audience to come into this topic. So just tell people again, if they haven't made it to one of the premieres, tell us again how people can access this series.
Yeah. If you haven't made it to the premiere, don't worry. You can watch this series, Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed, on the Forbidden Knowledge TV app. So you can go to your app store on your iPhone, your Android phone, Apple TV, Google Play, iOS App Store. It's on Roku and Samsung TV even. And you can get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app with the number 4, Forbidden Knowledge TV app. You can also go to 4bk.tv on any web browser, and you can get to it from there, and you can sign up for a free trial and watch episode 1 and see if you like it. And while you're in there, you can binge watch 39 episodes of my Egyptian Mystery School as well. So I encourage everyone to go and check it out.
Billy, you have put out so much phenomenal material. With everything you've already made available, tell people why they should come and join us on August the 25th for the workshop we're offering there. You touched on it a little earlier. I'm really excited about what we're going to do together. So let people have an idea of what we're up to.
Oh, yes. We have an amazing workshop. It's going to be mind-blowing, because what we found is that a lot of people really want to understand, how do you get deep into the knowledge? Where do you look? How do you research it? We're going to go deep into unlocking the Anunnaki enigma and ancient secrets of the transformation of religious belief. It's going to be a very deep talk. Paul Wallis and I are going to teach you the specifics of this information, how to dig deep into it, how to understand it, how to analyze it. And when you get done with this workshop, you're going to become educated enough that you will be able to explain or talk or speak to someone else about this topic and sound very studious about it. And plus, for people that are really, really passionate about this information, that want to learn more, like, how do you find this text? Where can I look for it? How do I read it? How do I translate it? You're going to get all of the information needed on how to find these tablets, where to look, how to get virtual tablets from a library shelf and how to translate them, how to create your own interpretations of them, how to connect all the dots between them, and how this information transformed religious belief over many eons, and how did it get us to where we are today. If you want to become a student of this ancient wisdom and knowledge in a way that not many people have done, I highly encourage you to join our workshop August 25th this month, and sign up, because it's going to be an amazing, mind-blowing workshop, and you get unlimited replays. So even if you can't watch the whole 4 or 5 hours, you can go back and play it back over and over and over again, so that you can do the research and you can get the knowledge.
I love what we're offering people in this workshop, because I think we're in an era where people are really tired of sort of celebrity figures, new priesthoods, expertism. And when people begin to get into this kind of content, they don't want to go around saying, well, Billy says this and Paul says this, because their friends are not going to be impressed with that. But they do want to talk about this material, but they want to have their feet on the ground and know what they're talking about. In this workshop, what we're going to be doing is exactly as Billy said, providing you with the tools, giving you links to actual material, getting you to the texts, showing you how to read them, showing you how to process what's in the texts, so that if that's your situation, you can then be talking in terms of, well, I've read some amazing texts that are thousands of years old, and they put forward these amazing ideas, and you will know what you're talking about, and it will be your personal engagement with the text. And I think it's well and truly time to break out of, a world of celebrities and experts. There's no need for that when we can all get access to the texts and to the tools that help us understand them. So I see this as a really empowering workshop that we're offering. I have people asking me for this kind of information all the time. How do I get to the cuneiforms? I don't speak Sumerian. I don't read cuneiform. So how do I get into the texts? We'll be looking at all the practicalities of that. And then also there's a little bit of soul work that a lot of us have to do when we start challenging old paradigms. It can be difficult to unlearn things we thought we knew before and really make room for fresh thinking from fresh sources. So that's something we'll be looking at as well. So for all these reasons, I'm really looking forward to August the 25th. Billy, how can people get to that event and make sure that they are there live if they want to be there live, or can watch the replays if they want to watch the replays?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a link, and hopefully the link is in the caption of this video. It's on forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com. And go to workshops, and you'll find the actual ticket link there to buy your ticket. It's a virtual workshop, which means that you will be able to watch it virtually on any device. Once you get your ticket, we will get you a link to watch the actual live feed. The live feed will be on Forbidden Knowledge TV, but it will only be available to people that have a ticket to the actual workshop class. No one else will be able to see it or play it back. So you'll have private access to this for an infinity. Okay, so it's a great opportunity to gain some knowledge and some wisdom, and even to peruse through the Forbidden Knowledge TV platform and see if there's anything else in there you'd like to watch. But this particular link that you'll get to watch it live is going to be exclusively just for you. And at the end of the workshop, when we end it, it renders in about 35, 40 minutes. And then you'll get a second email. You'll know this is your link for life to be able to log in and access this vital information.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm so looking forward to that event. We're going to wind up in a moment, but while you're here, Billy, you are into so many things. You're doing so much at the moment. I'm in awe of your productivity right now. I want to give you an opportunity just to mention tours before we wind up for the day.
Thank you. Yes. Every year we do amazing tours around the world. We take people to the most amazing ancient sites. This year we've sold out Turkey for September, and we're taking people to Turkey to see Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Derinkuyu, and many other amazing sites. We also have a huge tour coming to Egypt, our largest Egypt tour yet. It's going to be mind-blowing. And all of our tours have amazing VIP private access. So that means when we go to certain locations on the tour, all the tourists have to actually leave. They can't be there when we're there. Only the forbidden families allowed. And so if you want to find out more about our tours, we have 2 incredible tours opened up for 2025, because these 2 are already sold out and they sell out very fast. If you want to be involved and come to Peru and get the Forbidden Tour of Peru or the Forbidden Tour of Egypt for 2025, go to Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com, and go to our tours and make sure you register ASAP, because they do sell out extremely fast. And they're just amazing tours in the most incredible places. And I am actually your guide. So you get the forbidden knowledge. You don't get the generalized, commercialized tour mess or garbage, I like to say, that they give you. You're going to get the real information about that place. And you're going to get to see things that very, very few people get a chance to see. So that's why we love our tours. They're very exclusive VIP, and private visits are the best kinds of tours to go on.
Billy Carson, it's always an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We've just scratched the surface of all the things you're involved in at present, so you'll have to come back again sometime soon. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us once again on Fifth Kind TV.
Been amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
If you enjoy our content here on Fifth Kind TV and would like to support our work, please would you consider subscribing to our new website, fifthkind.tv.
Here we will have our full catalogue of material, along with exclusive access to interviews and documentary content. Sign up today, become part of the community, become part of the conversation. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you there.